I always say, if you've got a dental, vision, and hearing plan, Helen Keller would have loved to have been that person. Because Helen Keller, couldn't see, couldn't talk, couldn't hear, couldn't speak, all of those things. But she still made a life.
Yeah.
Because she had what? A teacher that never gave up on her.
Yep.
Never gave up on her. So, when people tell me they don't want to buy, I'm always like, they don't want to buy from you.
Welcome back for another episode of the CoachG podcast, just like that, only different. I've been excited for this one for a while. I have the queen of the bundle in the house, Gaylan Hendricks. Gaylan, how are you doing today?
Great. Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And we're in Nashville, Tennessee right now. Gaylan, you've had a little bit of a journey getting here today.
A
little bit. And you're off and running tomorrow. So talk to us about your getting here and then what's your travel like this week, what all you got going on.
Okay, so this week I got to remember it. So got your deal tomorrow, which is going to be fun. I'm looking so forward to that. You got a stellar lineup.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's a crazy time of year to have that many people here.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. Kudos to you. And then after that, I'm going to NABIP, which they totally changed their acronym, so I just call it NABIP. All these acronyms, as you and I were talking earlier, have turned into words.
Yep.
But I'm going there because I think it's really important for us as agents, and I'm still an agent, a licensed agent, to make sure that the senators and the congressmen and the HHS and CMS and all those great people know exactly what we as agents do for our clients and our beneficiaries. So I've got that all week. And then on Thursday, we're putting out new cross-selling videos. We'll be filming that on Thursday.
We love the cross-sell.
Hey, you're the king.
Yeah, king and the queen, right here, yep.
Only on one station, CoachG station.
Yep.
So we've got a busy week this week, and then we start all over again the following week. We're having the first ever, or we're calling it the inaugural Women's Conference for Manhattan Life.
Very cool.
On March 3rd through the 5th, and then off to Arizona to do another rollout for big agencies. So it's busy this time of year.
Women's Conference, can people still come? Yeah. Can you still sign up and go and all that stuff?
So this one was hand selected.
Okay.
I really wanted a group together that could tell us what they think about what's going on in today's environment. I've picked people that have never written a single policy for Manhattan Life. I've picked people that have been around probably not as long as I have, but close. Picked women that are just killing it out there that a lot of people don't even know who they are. So I wanted this group together to be able to just kind of share ideas and see where we're going in this industry. And then the next conference we're going to be putting together is a mixed conference, which is going to be men, women, young, not so young. I fit that category. I will never use the 3-letter word, but that would be old. I don't use that word.
Yeah.
I like a lot of 5-letter words, young at heart. But I really like being around dynamic, innovative people. After studying you the last month or so, you're very innovative. I've heard a lot about you through mutual friends. Your friends at New Horizons. They think very highly of you, and so does Christian and Glenn and all those people.
Yeah, thank you.
But it's cool to work with somebody that is not only ingenuitive, but innovative.
Yeah.
I'm constantly thinking about how we can improve this industry, how we can be better at what we do. I think we're a whole lot better than people give us credit for, but I think we can only get better. And I think that comes with us all just sharing ideas.
Yeah.
I love listening as much as I love talking. We're in this industry where we're all accused of being talkers. Right? But I've learned in the last 5 years especially that There are people that are up and coming in this industry, including you, that have so much to add that I can learn from. So any opportunity I get to be on one of these and learn from people, I'm always going to accept. So thanks for having me again.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it. Well, we do things a little bit differently. We love talking insurance, obviously, but I really want to get to know kind of your journey, your story, and probably something a lot of people don't get to hear a lot about.
Sure.
And I want to kind of rewind it, okay? Back to when Gaylan was maybe as a kid growing up, okay? What was that like? Where were you from, and what was your childhood growing up like?
I would probably be known as a redneck.
Okay.
I'm not ashamed of that. I absolutely loved the way I grew up. I grew up in what today would probably be considered pretty poor home. Mm-hmm. We were a one-income earner home, a one-car home.
Yeah.
I absolutely had a family that gave us unconditional love. I didn't even know that we were poor or not very wealthy until I was a junior in high school and wanted a prom dress, and my dad said, hey, we just don't have the money this month, but I was working. I said, no big deal, I'll go get it.
Yeah.
And so I've just always had a lot of work ethic. My dad was the absolute best salesperson I've ever known in my entire life. He was a debit agent.
What's a debit agent?
So for those of people not watching, you can't tell me here in the great state of Tennessee you don't know what a debit agent is.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I may call it something different.
So a debit agent, well, I forget, you are young at heart. But yeah, so what they would do is they would go around collect premiums for life insurance policies.
Okay.
And they were penny a day policies.
Okay.
But my dad, about 10 years in, was like, I'm collecting all this premium and I'm not really getting to sell much. So after he moved to Lubbock, Texas from Fort Worth, Texas, he created the first ever mail pay. And people were mailing in bags of pennies and dimes and nickels and quarters. And I started thinking about that one day. It probably costs more to mail that in.
That's exactly what I was just thinking.
Than today. But he was just a public servant. As a matter of fact, I never heard him tell anybody he was in the insurance industry. People would ask him what he did for a living, and he would say, I'm a public servant. And we would spend Saturdays going and collecting his debit, have lunch together, and he was just an amazing human being. My mom was very passive until you made her mad. And then that's when you knew that's why they got married.
Yeah.
Because my dad was always gregarious, happy, made friends. He didn't care if you were the janitor in the school building or the principal. You were people. And he taught us that at a very young age. And we had 2 rules growing up. We followed the golden rule, and it's not hard to remember. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
I do know that one. Yep.
And the second thing was our curfew was whatever grade we were in when we got into junior high and high school.
That's a good rule.
So if we were in 7th grade, our curfew was 7 o'clock. 8th grade was 8 o'clock. And so we did not miss curfew.
Yep.
And we never complained about it. It was one of those things that was just instilled in us in an early age. And I still say this to this day when I'm publicly speaking, is that I was very blessed by the family God gave me.
Yeah. I mean, not knowing you, and this is the first time we've ever met, you just come across as a tough woman. Do you get that a lot?
I do get that.
Yeah. Do you think that was part of your upbringing, or do you call yourself tough?
No, I think my dad instilled in me a ton of confidence.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I had a brother that was born before me, and he lived 3 days. And so when I came along, I was kind of I wasn't a tomboy, but I was the thing that my dad was like, you're going to like sports.
Yeah.
And so I started learning baseball and football at a very young age. So I knew discipline. I played volleyball as a kid. Loved basketball, loved cheerleading. I grew up in a little town that created a rule that you could only cheerlead if you had a brother on the football team.
No kidding.
So I didn't have a brother on the football team. That lasted for 2 years, so I didn't get to be a cheerleader. So when people start moaning and groaning about today, I'm like, come on, you can make it.
Yeah.
We can all make it, you know. But my dad, what he did for me early on was he taught me statistics. And we used to watch football on Sundays like everybody did, but we did it a little differently. We would play Jimmy the Greek football. Jimmy the Greek was an analyst on CBS at the time, and he would basically go over the picks, who he would pick. So my dad created this thing that whoever won the most games didn't have to do dishes. So I think that's when competition started.
Yeah, a little
in my
motivation,
life. Yeah.
competition, yeah.
But what really happened is I wanted to be Miss America when I was growing up. And I was just in awe of this lady by the name of Phyllis George. She had beautiful hair. She went to University of North Texas. She ended up marrying the governor of Kentucky, but just an amazing human being. But the reason I think I had so much confidence growing up is my dad yelled at me one Sunday morning and he said, "Do you know who that is on TV?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's Miss America. It's Phyllis George." He goes, "No, she's the first female sports broadcaster, and she will be fact-checked on everything." I remember him using fact-checked, and I'd never heard that before.
You hear that a lot now.
You hear it a lot now. But I had never heard that before, but he said she will be fact-checked on everything she said when those other losers won't be fact-checked because they've been on this show for years.
Yeah.
So watch what she predicts. So every time she would give her predictions for football games, that's who I went with.
Yeah.
And I won more than I lost because she absolutely knew her stuff.
So you weren't doing dishes much?
Nope.
No.
Nope. Nope.
And I mean, I guess knowing what I've seen of you, I mean, I feel like you just say what's on your mind a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is that from your dad, from your mom?
So no, my mom was very passive
Yeah.
growing up. Now when she got angry, we were talking about that a little bit before our filming started, you knew.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When she said something, we towed the mark. But they ruled with a firm hand, but they were just very loving parents.
Yeah.
We just had a rule that you always told the truth, and if you didn't tell the truth, it was double trouble.
Yeah.
And so if we got caught lying, it was double the punishment had we just told the truth. And so I was never afraid of my parents in the way of like an abuse situation, but I feared my parents. And I think that's what's missing a lot today. We have so much entitlement in our world that people just feel like they're owed things.
Yeah.
They're due things. And I think that's why when you've got somebody in front of you that has such work ethic, you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? You know, and the truth of the matter is that should never surprise us. That should just be the way people are.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of studying during COVID of the Great Depression and different wars. And I just realized that Americans in the 1800s were just hard workers. And they wanted America to be that place. And I want America to be that place. I want us all to fight for our freedom. I want us all to be proud of the veterans that serve us each and every day. My husband's a Vietnam veteran, and when we first got married, we'll be married 39 years this year, he would never talk about being a vet.
Yeah.
Or a Vietnam vet, much less. And I just always thought that was a sad shame. And I was like, I need you to be proud of that. And so I really think it's important for all of us that have children and grandchildren to instill in them how this country was founded. We had patriots that fought for this country, and I still think we can all be patriots in our own right. Sometimes we've got to remember that the federal government doesn't work for us. I mean, we don't work for them, they work for us. And sometimes it just means sitting down with them and saying, hey, this is what I don't like that you're doing. I wish you did a little more of this or a little more of that. And I got to meet Ivanka Trump when I was in Germany on an Etna trip years ago, and didn't know it then. You want to talk personal stuff, but all the guys in the corner were making bets how long it would take me to get to Ivanka because she was surrounded by Secret Service. And
How long did it take you?
like 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
It took me 5 minutes to get my gumption up and then 5 minutes to maneuver across the room.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 minutes to get my gumption and 8 minutes
I was
to.
gonna say, I don't think it took long. Yeah.
But, you know, I just was in awe of her. I was in awe of the fact that she just was so honest.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have this deal where I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I just want to know what you stand for.
Yeah.
And I want you to do what you say you're going to do. You know, I just don't buy into people who will sit there and give you a bunch of rhetoric and not back it up. You know, we can all be accused of doing different things, especially when we're in the public eye. But I think it's always standing on your record.
Yeah.
You know, look, this is what I did. This is why I want to fight for it. And when I look at all of these young people these days just killing it in the insurance industry, I had Dante Cantu, who I consider a legend in our industry.
Yep.
And another good friend, Charlie Tinsley, that asked if they could come by and just visit with me. They were going to go meet my business partner and have dinner. And I said, sure, do y'all need anything in specific? And they said, no, we just want to catch up, see how things are going. And we were visiting, and it was funny, we were talking about it, and I said, hey, do y'all think that a lot of the young people today would have made it if they had to start 20 years ago or in the
Such a good
conditions
question.
25 years ago? And they both were looking at me waiting to see what I was going to say, I think, because I've been doing this longer than they have. 40 years on May 12th this year, actually. And Dante said to me, he said, what do you think? And I said, I don't think they could.
I don't think so, and I'm a young person. I mean,
Yeah.
I started off knocking on doors. Nobody could do that now.
Oh, you're right.
Very, very little. I mean, I don't want to say nobody, but
Yeah.
very, very little
Yeah,
could do
you're
that.
right. It's because, well, you and I were talking about this earlier today. When I very first started calling to create leads for insurance agents, we were calling phone books.
Mm-hmm.
Back then there was this thing called Dun & Bradstreet, and we didn't even have that list yet because it was so expensive.
Yeah.
So we just acquired Yellow Pages. So our agents' jobs were, when they were out selling insurance, was to pick up all the Yellow Pages that you could in your hotels and bring them back to us.
Yeah.
And we just had mountains of phone books.
Yeah.
And we would hand them to our reps, and the reps would call these phone books. And, you know, we didn't know if they had a bank account. We didn't know how old they were. We didn't know if they had insurance. You know, we didn't know anything.
I mean, efficiency was like really not an afterthought back then.
It wasn't. And the funny thing was, well, you say that, but we really graded our reps on how quick they got on and off the phone. So when I'm training these days, I always tell agents, I always know if the client sold you, because I hear you say, thanks, have a nice day. Well, I didn't hear you say, thanks, your cards will be in the mail in 2 weeks. I heard you say, thanks, have a nice day.
The client sold to you. I like that.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
great way to put it.
And so, you know, I think a lot of my wanting this industry to be as good as it can be is just because, not that I've been around forever, it's just a good industry.
Yeah.
What we do for people is so important. You know, during the absolute, and I've lived this, so I can speak about it openly and honestly, which I'll do tomorrow, but I watched my dad go through one of the worst cancer diagnoses. And then I watched my mom be in a Medicaid living facility. And so it's easy for me to talk about a package of protection and talk about why it's so vital. And that's why I have all of those products on myself. I don't understand agents that want to sell something that they don't believe
Don't
in
have it on
buying
their
for
shelf, yeah.
themselves. You know, it's crazy to me when I'll ask an agent, do you have a cancer policy? No. Okay, so why do you think you can convince me that you can enroll somebody in one? And then I have agents say, you know, well, I really don't want to be a salesperson the rest of my life. Okay, tell me one thing that you have in this studio that somebody didn't sell you.
Right.
You know, anything we do, whether it's eating at one of these amazing restaurants in Nashville. I'm kind of thinking I might need to stay 24 hours because I love to eat here. But, you know, you're being sold in those restaurants. They're upselling you on dessert. They're upselling you on alcohol. They're upselling you on everything you do. So in our industry, the only difference between us and them is when you go into a restaurant, you're putting things into your body that can cause you to have to go to a hospital. What we're doing for people is creating a policy so when they go into those places, they're not pulling that money out of their bank accounts or their savings accounts or their 401ks. And what I started doing a year ago was just training agents how to sell the adult children. Because I got tired of hearing, well, my client can't afford this, and my client lives in this area, and my client's so broke. Okay, so we're just gonna repeat the burden to the next generation? Are you kidding me? Use some common sense. You know, I call it CSF, and it stands for common sense factor. You know, if you cannot have common sense factor in your everyday life, how are you going to bring it into your business if you don't practice it each and every day? You know, one of the things you were asking me earlier was about income potential.
Yeah.
You know, my income potential was just always taking care of my family.
Right.
You know, what keeps me debt free, what pays for my kids' college account, and making sure we have a roof over our head and good food. And God just blessed the rest. But I think we overcomplicate things today, you know, and I have been accused of being the Dolly Parton of the insurance industry. You know, I'm very simple-minded.
Yeah.
Dolly has a saying that I love. I've created a little better one, I'm going to say.
Let's hear it.
But she loves to say it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. You know, I say free isn't free. There's always a catch.
How much is it going to cost you down the road?
There's always a catch. So I almost think it's a disservice when you're in the underage side of our business and you can say you get free health insurance. But the minute they turn 65, we can't tell them free insurance. We have to call it zero premium. Now you tell me which is more confusing.
Right.
When you tell a client zero premium, all they hear is zero. That same population is almost me. I'm 3 years and 3 months away, well, 3 years and 4 months away.
Who's counting?
From being a senior citizen, clocking it down to the golden years. But if someone told me I was going to get something for free, the first thing I would say is, what's the catch? But instead, we're telling everybody zero premium. You know, I think it would be better just to say it's free health insurance, but here's where you're going to pay if you use the plan.
Yeah.
And then we create an assessment for our disclosure form that would say, for this out of pocket, we got this.
Yep.
And you know, when you and I first sat down, you said, I want to talk about you personally. Well, you cannot talk to me about my personal life ever at any dinner, breakfast, lunch, and me not talk about insurance.
Yeah.
I eat, sleep, breathe it every day. It's who I am. I'm a mom. I love being a mother. It was a God gift. I was told I would never have children, and I have a miracle son. A lot of people, you know, have heard me say that, and they'll meet Sean because he is amazing in our industry. Him and my daughter-in-law, they're incredible in this
What is
industry.
Sean's role in the industry?
So Sean is over our distribution for SSB, and he is a Wikipedia on steroids. I mean, we have carriers that call him and ask him information. Yeah. We have competitors call and ask him information. I mean, he's smart as a whip. His wife, my daughter-in-law, she's celebrating 20 years in our industry this year. She was going to go to school. Dan and I wanted to help her with her education, and she was like, I think I would just rather go to the school of Gaylan Hendricks. So she started working in our business even before my son. They're both very, very smart, but they They heard a lot of this at the dinner table. I would say they're probably better than me at this business right now as far as communicating technology and all the stuff everybody uses. But I'll quote my son. He says, Gaylan is really good about firing people up, but we got to be here when she leaves that
Got to
group,
be executing,
you know, and we've got to be able to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, I love being a mom, but when people say, like we did a huddle not too long ago, and they introduced him as Gaylan's boy's on the call with us today. And while I know he's incredibly proud of me, as I am of him, I mean, he's like anybody. It's like, well, hold on. I kind of made my way here, you know.
Exactly.
And, but he'll just shake his head. He never says anything sassy except to me, you know, and that's cool. I mean, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I've been sassy my whole life. But I do think it's one of those things where when I look at Sean and Shauna, I'm very proud of how they've turned out. Their kids are amazing human beings. And you only have good kids when you have good parenting.
Yeah.
And their kids are incredible. I was just seeing my grandson, who's a freshman at Tech. I couldn't be more proud, more amazed by the young man he is. But I love being a wife. I didn't think I was going to get married. I was engaged 3 times before my husband and I got engaged. And he basically told me, we are getting married, and we've been married 39 years. And
incredible.
Thank
Coming
you.
up on the big 4-0.
Yeah, and he just celebrated his 72nd birthday yesterday.
Okay.
And
I saw that. Yeah. Happy birthday
and
to Dan.
so, you know, love being his wife, love being a grandmother. I love my life.
Yeah.
God has blessed me so much more than I deserve. I work with great people. I love being an integrity partner.
And kind
amazing.
of just jumping back a little bit.
Yeah.
So you said like that's who you are as insurance right now.
Yeah.
But at one point it wasn't. Like did you ever want to do anything else?
Yeah.
What did you want to do?
Well, I wanted to be in advertising because when I was growing up, the shows on TV were all about these advertising execs. And when you watched Bewitched, they got to go to all these little cocktail hours and, you know, they were fancy and all that. But, you know, my dad prayed me into this business. I know he did. And I started when I was 22. So I've really not done anything else. For 4 years, I was at the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. And I thought I was going to be in advertising sales. Instead, I was in advertising accounting. And then while I was doing that, I also worked at a bowling alley.
Okay.
And I ran their solicitation group. So what we did is we got bowlers into the bowling alley. And one day I just saw these girls just calling onesies and twosies. And I was like, well, what if we offered bowling parties to these doctors and these attorneys?
You've always been recruiting in some way.
Yeah.
Yep.
We would be able to get 10 to 20 people in.
Yeah.
And so my goal was to get us up to 300 bowlers, and we hit like 430 that year. And,
Are you a good bowler?
I was. I had my pro card right before I got pregnant, all of about 6 months. And I was a scratch bowler. And I loved bowling, and then my timing went to crap, and I've not been good ever since. But I did get a new ball during COVID and new shoes, and they're still sitting in the garage. The shoes have not been worn, and the bowling ball has not been drilled because I kicked off Queen of the Bundle during COVID.
That was in COVID, okay.
Yep.
I was going to ask how long that's been around.
I did it because I was wondering how my husband and I were going to stay married. We had never been in the same house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I went upstairs and I was like, what are all of my face-to-face agents going to do during this crap?
Yeah.
I mean, it really bothered me. And so I started creating scripts and started just advertising this Queen of the Bundle thing. I was really good friends with a guy by the name of Bobby Bache, and he was Medicare Bob, and he used to always say, Mama, you're the queen of everything.
I've heard a couple people call you Mama today, so that's also the nickname.
Yeah. Well, they're all young enough to be my kids.
Yeah.
But so I got on that airplane and I was like, well, I'm not the queen of everything, but I do love this bundling thing. And so I went back and trademarked Queen of the Bundle and also Spouse in the House at
Yeah.
the same time. I figured if it worked for Dr. Seuss, it could work for me.
Yeah.
So went back and coined that, and then that was in 2019, and then 2020, I started using it.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, guys, this is going to be a tough year. Let's get on these Zoom calls, and I'll show you guys how we teach our agents to get on the phone, call your existing block, ask a couple of questions. And then in 2021 is when I became an integrity partner. Little did I know that Queen of the Bundle was going to be its own little business within SSB's business model.
That's exactly what's happening with CoachG. I mean,
yes.
I've kind of.
Are you the only employee of CoachG? Because I'm the only employee of
feels
Queen
like
of the Bundle.
It feels like, well, my wife, I got to give her huge credit. But
well, I can't wait to meet her.
I will also say, I mean, I kind of knew of you over the years and saw the Queen of the Bundle stuff. And there's definitely, that's where the cross-sell king came from. But it's kind of like, okay, the conceptualness of that really fed your business, I assume, big time. Do you feel like you took off once Queen of the Bundle happened?
So a lot of things happened. So we have always been the IMO that had, or whatever we're called.
Yeah,
you know,
FMO,
it just
IMO,
depends.
distribution partner, yeah.
But we had always been known as that partner that flew under the radar. Oh, I've got a funny story about Sam's and Hockaday. So right when Mike White invited me to have a seat at the table of being a diamond partner, Taylor and I went to this first meeting, and it was in 2008. And all these guys that I had known from afar, because I was introduced to them by an amazing man by the name of Shep Keller and Dan McNerney. And I saw all these guys on this leaderboard, and I literally couldn't handle it. I was like, Taylor, we're going to be on that leaderboard. We cannot be in this room and not be on that leaderboard.
Real quick, though, where did this come from? Because I keep hearing this. Like, you could not stand not doing the dishes. Like, you didn't want to be doing the dishes. You want to be at the top of the leaderboard. Like, where did this come from?
I guess because growing up, a kid of the 60s, we were just told we would never be able to do that.
Yeah.
And by TV, by the way everything was being ran. So when I was 5 years old, my mom noticed that when I was watching TV, I could never sit still.
Yeah.
She was like,
I could see that.
Always, she said I was either coloring or I was doing the dot to dots or I wanted to learn how to crochet. And she was doing crossword puzzles at the time, and I couldn't even read, and I was asking her if I could do the crossword puzzles, you know. But I would look at her magazines, and I could not sit still. So she took me to a doctor, and the doctor was like, well, we can get her on some tranquilizers, and that'll kind of calm her down. And my mother was like, we are not putting my kid on tranquilizers. So she took me down to the Fort Worth Public Library, which was right by where she worked, a little part-time job. And I sat next to this lady that had hair out to here, and her name was Mrs. Cook, and she was amazing. And she told me from the very first time that I sat down with her, she said, Gaylan, you're smart. You're going to learn to read, and you will be on a higher reading level than almost anybody you'll ever meet. And she would just put that into me, all of these affirmations. And I remember being in second grade, I had a school teacher by the name of Mrs. Murray that was incredible. And she called my mom in, and she said, she's already reading, and this is going to blow your audience away, but they were called chapter books at the time. And it was Laura Ingalls Wilder, Little House on the Prairie, and she said she's on a 7th grade reading level.
And what age were you at this point?
At that time, I would have been 7.
Okay.
And I entered a spelling bee at the time. I got second place. I still say the first place cheated, but that's okay. He had a connection to the secretary.
You could just feel it. It just does not
still doesn't go
does
away.
not sit with you.
But
well,
it's okay.
losing.
It's okay. I've lived to tell about it. But you know, it just, I had people that were so important in my life. You know, I had a 7th grade speech teacher by the name of Mr. Nagel. I'd moved from all the kids I'd ever known into a school where I knew no one. And I walked in this green pantsuit that my grandmother had made me, and the very first introduction was a guy going, "She looks like the Jolly Green Giant," because I was always chunky. And in that classroom, this very handsome teacher pulled me to the side and he said, "You're going to have to do an oral book report." And I was like, "Oh, I don't stand up in front of people." And he was like, "Well, you are in this class." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So I was terrified.
Yeah.
But he just instilled in me this confidence that I could do it. And, you know, I ended up going from speech to being captain of my debate team to being president-elect of my cooperative office education class. I wanted to work. My senior year, I had planned on going to UT, but I realized how much debt it was going to put my family into.
The other UT, by the way.
Yeah. Both orange,
Yeah.
different varieties. I could quote The Blind Side, but I won't. There's a pretty orange and a bad orange. But at the end of the day, I love Southeast Conference. I think they're the most competitive out there. But, you know, it was just one of those things where I just had all these people that believed in me along the way. And I was just telling my nieces this conversation this last week. I wanted to drop out of high school my senior year. My cooperative office education teacher made it so incredibly hard on me. And my dad said, "Okay, drop out. You've got 6 weeks left, drop out. You have our permission." And I said, "Okay, great." So we go in and we speak to the counselor, and then my cooperative office education class teacher came in and she said, "You know, I push you like I do because you're going to be the one in this class that will be a CEO or a president of a
People
company."
that push you, I mean, they see something deeper in you, they believe in you, and they see something you don't.
Yeah. And so I walk out, my dad said, "Did you quit?" I said, "No.
I don't think have you ever quit anything?
I don't think I have. No.
Well, this is
This
all.
could be a quitting, but it was really just planned. But the last year before I went out and started my own IMO,
Yeah.
the guy that I'd worked with, he and I were not seeing eye to eye because of his son in the business. He just was not doing things like I did, and I didn't approve of it. It was a lot of non-compliant stuff I would never have tolerated.
Yeah.
And so he literally pulled me into his office one day and he said, "Listen, you know, you and I have worked together a long time." He said, "But I think we need to take a break." And I remember Friends being on, you know, the let's take a break episode.
Yeah.
And I remember just looking at him and I said, "No, I'm not going to take a break. I've already made my decision to leave." And I'd already applied to go to Dallas Baptist University and I got accepted. My grades were terrible in high school. I mean, I was a CB student. I could make A's. I just went for the social hour. And the dean of business said, "Why do you want to do this? You make more money than me." And I said, "Well, because all these kids I'm working around have all these college educations.
Yeah.
And I just feel insecure." And he was like, "I would hire you to be a professor."
What age
here."
was this?
This would have been in 2003.
Okay.
And I would have been 40
Yeah.
at the time. And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "You can come to this school." He goes, "Why don't you just go start your own business?"
Right.
And I was like, I didn't think about it. And everybody had been telling me I needed to leave for years.
Yeah.
And so when he said we're going to go on a break, I said, "No, I'm going to leave."
I want to recap a couple things. So I've studied under one of the an influence kind of guru, okay? And he always says 9 to 13 are some of the most influential years of your life. It sounds like you had a lot of people that believed in you during those years. Do you think that was a big impact for you, some of those people that?
I absolutely did.
Yeah.
100%. And going back to the Samson Hockaday thing, leaderboard,
Yeah.
you know, I announced in that room, mind you, there was only 2 women in that room.
I know this room
was
you're
one of
talking
them.
about, this Mike White deal where Steve Young came in, right?
No,
No, that was a
this is
different one?
way before that
Okay,
one.
gotcha.
Yeah, but
Gotcha.
that was prolific in my career
Yeah.
too. But I announced to the room me and Taylor would be first on that leaderboard the next year. When we came back, we were in third, and Samson Hockaday were first, and Dan McNerney was number 2, and we were number 3. The next year we came back, we were number 2.
That was with Mike White when he was AIMC. Okay.
And from that point on, I've always had a great relationship with Sam's and Hockaday. They've been all of those guys. That's why I get so put out when I hear women going, well, men just don't want us here. Men just don't want us here. I have never bellied up to a bar and talked to any of these guys in the industry and asked for help that they didn't give it to me.
Right.
They have all been instrumental in my career. They have all spoke so kindly about me, to me. I mean, I will tell you right now, if you called John Hockaday and said, tell me what you think about Gaylan Hendricks, I mean,
I've done just those exact words.
I would be embarrassed because people have told me what he and Jeff have said about me.
Yeah.
And it's just so kind.
Yeah.
And I don't know that a lot of it's warranted. We're just a different group. We all have respected each other. We've all competed against one another, but we've all been there for each other. And when I created the products for Manhattan Life, I mean, I remember Ryan Kimball coming into my office saying, why would you want to do this for all your competitors? And I'd be like, well, hello, we're going to grow the company.
Right.
But number two, look what y'all have done for me.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I do that? And there's like 15 to 20 of us that have just always been connected.
Yeah.
And we always will be. And it's an incredible thing. And the Steve Young meeting you're talking about, a lot was going on in my life at that time. I had been sued by a former partner, not rightfully so. And I always say God came through in a big way, but I tell you what, I kept hearing God say, you got to lose to win, you got to lose to win. And right when everybody thought I was losing, I was really winning. And man, when God came through, it was a victory like nobody's business. And I told those guys after that meeting, I said, it'll happen, but I'm not ready right now. I need time.
Yeah.
And when I finally wanted to hear about it, I'd called Mike White, and he said, let's me, you, and Brian have lunch. And I told Brian, I said, I'm just not ready. And he goes, well, let me put it to you this way. He goes, there are no two other people that respect you as much as we do at this table. And I'll never forget, he says, when you were going through that, we prayed for you daily.
Yeah.
And they did. They were sending me words of affirmation. So God has blessed me with the people I'm supposed to be with. He always has. He always will. And I remember closing my deal with Brian. And I said, there's two things I'm going to ask you to do. One, I never want you to refer to me as a female leader. And number two, I will always speak about my faith. Mm-hmm. So please don't ever ask me not to.
Right.
Because those are deal breakers for me. And I will tell you, I did my deal in 2021, and he has kept his promises to me. We don't talk as much as we did because, my gosh, we've got a ton of people now.
It's gotten crazy.
But we still talk probably once a month.
Yeah.
And, you know, he just went through a bad situation when he lost his dad, and I've been there and done that. So I was constantly just breathing, you know, the word into him, saying, hey, you're going to make it through this. But he's an amazing leader. I'm very proud of him. I knew him way back when he wasn't the leader he is today, but he's one of my best friends. I consider him that. Ryan Kimball will walk in rooms and call me a mentor, and I blush. I think the world of him. I'm in awe of him. My business partner, I'm in awe of Taylor, and my kids and my husband, and guys like you sprouting up every day. To be asked to do these kinds of things are just the ultimate compliment, and it never gets old, and I'm humbled by it every single day. So again, thank you for this blessing.
Yeah, it's funny because you talk about, hey, you were asking a lot of other men in the industry for advice. How many people come to you for advice now?
Oh.
Is it a little overwhelming at times?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I literally about 2 weeks ago was telling Ryan Kimball, I've got to get better at saying no.
Yeah. Well, thank you for not doing it this time. Yeah. Wait till next week to say no.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But you know, you've got a group of people who you just see something in, and you're like, I'm going to make time for that guy
Yeah.
or that gal. And I've been very selective this year, and I'm still, I've had 4 or 5 people call wanting to book me for next month. And
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, I'm booking July.
Yeah.
And I'm already nervous when it comes to August and September. And everybody's like, well, is integrity just pushing you out there? Like, you know, and I'm like, you know, they are so considerate of me,
Yeah.
and they'll call and ask, can you put this on your calendar? And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I can put it
Yeah.
on my calendar. But it's one of those things where I'm really trying to just be more selective, honor the industry I'm so lucky and blessed to be part of, but more importantly, there are just people out there that you see something in, and you're like, these people truly care about other people. They truly want to be better.
Yep.
And what I have discovered is there's a lot of these people where I'm Switzerland. They don't get along with each other, but I like both of them.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn to just say, I'm sorry that you two don't get along,
Yeah.
but I see so much greatness in both of you. If you make me choose, I'm not going to choose. You may not like what I say next if you make me choose. Because I think what happens is they get so competitive that they forget that in order to win the race, you got to bring others along with you.
No doubt.
That finish line can be so lonely.
Yep.
And so I want a lot of people there with me. And I can't remember, I just remembered who it was. It was Ryan Pepper of the Kellogg group in Utah. And he was talking about something that I had done for him. And he turned it around where I walked out of there going up to him and said, oh my word, you have just made my day. And he was talking about these people in Ethiopia and how they were serving them and how they would all come together and they were clutched arm in arm. And when they crossed the finish line, they were picking up their friends along the way so that they could all get, and I can't remember if it was water or food, but they were clutched arm in arm at that finish line. And I thought, what a great moment
Yeah.
for leadership. And these people are just trying to eat. And then we've got people over here, my words are usually bitching, moaning, and groaning.
That's all right.
About this little guy pointed this little guy out wrong, or this girl told that guy he was wrong, which they normally are.
Yeah.
Why don't you just say, hey, thank you for that. I'll correct that. I appreciate the help. But why do you have to do it on a social media platform?
Yeah.
Private messenger
Or picking up the phone or texting
is
or
for
calling
that,
somebody.
or
Yeah.
text
Yeah.
or call, because that right there would mean the world to somebody.
Yeah.
So I get so irritated about the little dramas that sprout out, because that's when people go, oh, those are bad actors.
Right.
And it's just like when we see people doing that in the federal government. You know, when you were watching the confirmation hearings, some of the stuff that they were saying about people, I was fact checking it and
Yeah.
I couldn't find it anywhere. And I'm like, how do you do that to somebody on national television? Because you know, when they retract that stuff, it's about that big.
Yeah, no one hears it.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like when I went through my thing, it was like splashed everywhere. But then when the newspaper apologized, it's on page 7 of the sports page that nobody's looking
Yeah,
at.
in the fine print. Yeah.
You know, and I didn't care because I knew I was right. I knew my husband and I had done zero wrong. We had always done the right thing. We had never spent a dime we weren't supposed to spend. We even had it in a savings account that we were able to take to the lawsuit and say, all this money is in an escrow account.
Yeah.
When we're ready to settle this, we've got it to pay.
Well,
And then they get mad because we wrote a check for it instead of monthly installments. I'm like, no, you don't get to be mad about us doing the right thing.
right.
So I just think if anybody's watching this, they need to realize that, you know what, worry about your lane. Worry about where you end up, but most importantly, what are your children going to say about you at your funeral? That's how I've lived my life. My son can disagree with me all day long. I don't care. He has that right. But at the day of my funeral, all I want him to say is my mom was a good person. She tried to help everybody she knew. She was generous not only with her time, but with her resources. And I was proud to be her son. And that's the way I live my life every day. And I think I was given that as a gift. You got a kid.
2 of them, yep.
Yeah. So what do you want them to say about you? And when you live like that, it makes life easy,
Yeah.
just easier.
Yeah, I mean, you have the integrity pin on your lapel there, and it's obvious. I mean, I think one word I think that is really strong for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is integrity.
Absolutely.
Is a big part of who you are and what you do. I want to jump back real quick. So I didn't know this about you. You got in the insurance industry, and were you solo for a while? Were you just doing your own thing before you grew this IMO, this FMO? Fill in the gaps for me there.
So I started in the industry in 1985.
Yep.
Thought I was going into pharmaceutical sales. Ended up being an insurance agency.
Yep.
And I really wanted to be just a CFO or a COO. And the more I started watching these agents.
But you're working for an agency at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
The more I started watching these agents, I was like, I can do this.
Yep.
And so my dad, I went home one day and I said, I want to do this, but they don't have anybody that I would even want to train me.
Yeah.
And there were guys there that I liked, but they were younger than me.
Yeah.
And some were way older than me. I'm 22 at the time. And my dad handed me 2 books.
So you were having these thoughts at 22 that you could do this better
Yeah.
type deal.
Yeah.
Yep.
And my dad handed me 2 books, and one was See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar, and one was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale.
Yep.
And he said, read these books. These will create you a base. And so then I did a couple of different things that were really kind of stupid, but they really set the course for my career. The first one was I got really mad at my boss right after I had my baby, and so I started sending out resumes. Well, he got tired of my attitude and I got tired of his, so he was running an ad for my job, and I sent my resume into that job. Well, he pulls me in and he's going to fire me because I've sent in a resume for my job.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at him saying, well, then why is it any more wrong of you when you were running an ad for my job?
Right.
Well, a month later, he pays to move me to Fort Worth or Dallas, Texas when he got promoted because nobody else wanted to go with him.
Yeah.
So it was a way for me to go back home, and he and I just connected. And then he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And he just was another one of those great salespeople. He had studied under W. Clement Stone of Combined, and he taught me a lot. Another one of those guys that taught me a lot to do, but more what not to do.
Yeah.
And then that was amazing. But then after we started kicking it and life was great, all of our agents started qualifying for these trips. And the girl that I worked with in our office, her name was Lisa Black at the time. We still are in touch with each other, Facebook, but you know, it's been great. He had given us the week off because all of them were going to Hawaii. And all these leads were sitting in this guy's office that since died. Both of them have died, Mike Brown and Mike Allgood. And I said, Lisa, we should set appointments and go run these leads. Because we both were licensed, but we were in charge of conservation. So when all these agents' businesses were falling off the books, we were calling them, saving it,
keeping them on
and
it.
didn't get paid a dime for it. Just part of our job.
Right.
So she goes, I want to lay by the pool. And I was like, I think we ought to do this. Well, we ended up writing, she and I argue over it. It was somewhere between $17,000 and $22,000 of production that week, which was a lot of production in 1987. And we went by the name of Gaylan Hendricks. Well, we ended up getting put in the newsletter because all these people were gone to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And so our boss kept asking us who Gaylan Hendricks was. Well, she didn't want to tell him because she was terrified. And I was getting annoyed that he didn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
Yeah, how do you not figure it out? Last names. Yeah.
it was the stupidest stuff.
Yeah.
It was the 80s.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll chalk it up to
Give it
that.
grace,
Y'all,
yep.
y'all fill in the blanks. But anyway, so we literally were sitting there and I go, okay, I've had all I can do with this, Mike. Lisa Black, Gaylan Hendricks. He goes, y'all sold this much? And I go, I got tired of hearing these agents gripe about these leads being bad.
Yeah.
They get thousands of them.
Right.
How do they not make money? So we started that way. And then lo and behold, Mike ends up getting fired a couple of weeks later after the Hawaii trip because he pulled some stuff he shouldn't have pulled when he was in Hawaii.
Okay.
So we went with him, and that's when I started selling.
Yep.
And he put me in charge of the recruiting. It was kind of like the rooster watching the hen house, but I was the rooster. So I was in charge of recruiting. I was in charge of the call center. I was in charge of sales. I was in charge of ops. But it was the best education.
So you were in a big leadership position early on, it sounds
Best
like.
education I could have gotten. So it would have been in 1988. And then we just started crushing it.
Yeah.
And we had our own agency. And one of the girls that came to work for me back then, she just recently retired. And she worked with me from 1987 until this year. So I've been very blessed by a lot of great people in this industry. And then I asked him for a raise on my base. Now here's a man, I was doing all this for him, and I asked him to raise my base from 26 to 30,000.
Wow.
And he said no.
26 to 30,000. That was in 1989?
88.
Yeah, 88.
Yeah. And my husband at the time was an agent for him, and my husband was getting ready to be vested, get his renewals, and Mike terminated his renewal account. Well, unbeknownst to me, Dan sued him. I get the call that I need to leave the company till I can talk Dan out of not suing him.
Yeah.
Well, I just told him I wasn't coming back. So both of us were without a job. My husband ended up winning that lawsuit, and then I was on my way. Of course, you know, my mother had loaned him $10,000 when he paid me back the $10,000. He liked to show everybody, she took $10,000 out of my company and didn't tell me. Oh no, we had the promissory note.
Yeah.
You owed it. A lot of things, again, in the 80s. But, you know, all of those things, you guys, are what makes you have staying power. I see so many people gripe about all their haters. You know, those haters are what make you strong.
Yeah.
They are what give you backbone. Look at all the athletes. Do you think Michael Jordan was ever hated in his world? He wasn't always respected. And when he got the Nike deal, some of the most unkind things were said about Michael Jordan. Like he was getting paid money under the table. He was getting this. He was a GOAT.
Yeah.
He deserved everything he got. He worked his tail off. And even though I'm not a Tom Brady fan,
Hard not to respect him.
my last heroes, I mean, that's the last time we won the Super Bowl, right? So
Yeah.
Dallas, we're probably not going to be there for a little while.
Yeah.
So I have to talk about Tom Brady. Look at what all he's done and what he just negotiated to be the analyst. And whether you like this last Super Bowl or not, he was great
Yeah.
at commentating the Super Bowl. So I've learned to respect people, even though I may not love them, because as a Dallas Cowboy fan, we don't love New England.
Yeah.
Okay? But my word, when you read books by Bill Parcells and Vinny Testaverde, and they didn't even really like each other, but their career together. Can you imagine either one of them having the career that they ended up having without one another?
Well, I mean, I always say skill recognizes skill.
Absolutely.
And talent's always going to respect talent.
Absolutely. So there are people in my industry that have tried to knock me down.
Yeah.
But those are the people the reason I'm still standing.
Yeah. Would you say you're fueled by that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and who wouldn't be?
Yeah.
If you're a competitor, you've got to know who you're racing against.
Yeah.
You've got to know who you're playing against. You've got to know their score before you even dictate what yours is going to be.
Yeah.
And people who don't dictate that they're going to be great, I don't want to be with them.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, Queen of the Bundle, like I said, partially, I mean, a conglomeration of things fueled what I'm doing today, but it's like, if somebody else is doing it out there, it's like, well, why can't I do it?
Absolutely.
At a very high
better.
level. Yeah. And honestly, that's probably what has driven you a lot. It's like, hey, I can do that and I can do it better, which you did, ultimately.
Ultimately, yeah.
So you ultimately transitioned to building your own agency, IMO. Talk about that transition.
That was in 2003. I had created the name Senior Security Benefits in 2001 because my husband was staying home. You talk about a man that has a backbone. This was a guy that looked at me and said, look, I've known greatness. You need to go do this. I'll stay home, because we weren't going to let just anybody raise our kid.
Right.
We both wanted this kid. He didn't think he had a snowball chance in hell of having a kid at 33, because back then that was old.
Yeah.
And, and I was told you couldn't have children because I was medically told. And then we put two people who thought they weren't going to have a kid have this amazing kid. And we weren't going to not have him raised by one of us. So here's this Vietnam vet being called Sugar Daddy by all of his friends that were military. But he let me go do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I traveled this country. I showed somebody who didn't think I could make it in annuities, end up being the #1 annuity agent in the country, #3 the first year I started. So much so that when I got recognized as the 3rd place annuity agent that year of American Life and Casualty, the guy introduced Gaylan Hendricks with his assistant here.
I remember hearing the story now. Yeah.
And I didn't hold anything against that guy. I just went up, gave him a hug, got my award, went back and sat down. Those are moments that make great stories.
Yeah.
And they built my backbone. And they made it where, those things just don't bother me. Everybody gets so riled up these days. Quit getting so riled up. You know what I get riled up about? Is taxes.
Yeah.
Get
the government riles you up.
Yes, get riled up about how to take better care of your family.
Yeah.
Get riled up about how to take care of your local Ronald McDonald houses. Get riled up about the food banks that need food. Don't get riled up about your competitor. They're just making you better.
Yeah.
Competitors will always make me better.
Absolutely.
And when they can be your friends, there's no end.
Yeah.
There's no end. It's the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in, collaboration directly leads to innovation.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people are in this room that are quote unquote competitors that are speaking this week.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I can't wait to personally learn from everybody that's in the room. And likewise, I feel like that's where the true winners are, and the people that are at the top, is they're willing to learn and collaborate no matter what stage you're at in your career.
And the minute you say, I don't know why that person's speaking, I've not heard of that person, make sure you listen to that person.
Yeah.
That person's going to bring something that you have no expectation.
Love that advice. Yeah.
And let me tell you, you're going to walk out of there going, man, I can do something with that.
Yeah.
And when I'm on stage and I walk off the stage, everybody jokes about I've got this line of 50 mile deep of agents.
Yeah.
I always watch the other speakers. So when people are talking to me while other people are talking, I'm like, hey, I want to hear what they have to say.
Right.
Catch me when we're done. Because I can learn from that person. I'm going to learn from those 50 in front of me. But I'm dadgum going to learn from the folks that are on the stage. And back to your question, so when I started and all those things along the way, in 2003 is when I went out and hung my own shingle, as they say. And I had people at the last agency I was with that were spreading rumors that I had a non-compete. Never had a non-compete. Never had one. The guy that actually did my contract for me made sure I didn't have one. He was the new-to-be owner's son. The owner said, no, you will not have a non-compete. So when I walked and said, nope, not taking a break, just going to go do my own thing, I had some of the best agents we had there calling me and saying, how can I come work with you? I don't want to do this with them anymore. I want to go with you.
And was that built as a distribution company, or did you have internal?
No, I started out just being a career organization.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in career organizations.
Likewise.
I think everybody should start in one. And don't cry in your beer or go wham, wham, wham because you didn't take your renewals with you.
Yeah.
That is your, as I would say, University of Tennessee or your SMU education.
I was captive at Sam's Hockaday.
Absolutely.
For 15
there
months.
is zero wrong with it and 100% right with it.
Yep.
It is where you get your education. And I've always had a career organization, and I would always have agents go out banging their chest saying, oh, I did all this on my own and I didn't get this or I didn't get that. We always gave our agents a way to leave. We always said, look, you can get an immediate release if you'll take contracts with us and then work your own deal.
Yeah.
But we've invested a boatload in you, and we're going to get our revenue back just like you would want to get. And I watch those agents that leave, and it hurts my heart when they don't show up on leaderboards.
Right.
When they were numbers 1, 2, and 3 on the leaderboards when they were working with me.
Yeah.
And they were bragging about that, trying to get the biggest deal with some other FMO. And then I get a call from an FMO wannabe going, hey, tell me the story that happened with you and this chick, or happened with you and this guy. Hey, just didn't work out. I think they're great people. I hope they do fantastic. But they left too soon.
Yeah.
And they were too prideful to come back and say, I need your help.
And I'm a big believer. I mean, not everybody should run their own shop. Not everybody's meant to be that run their own business. We have a lot of people in our industry.
Not everybody's Warren Buffett or Steve Jobs.
No, and we have a lot of people in our industry that may be good salespeople, but they don't have the business acumen to do it. And
Discipline.
if you're in a great career shop that provides you everything, most of those people make more money than the people that are running their own shop.
Yes.
That are just making a lot and spending a lot.
Well, there are just, and there have been a lot of those in my career. There are just great managers that are not meant to manage salespeople. They can manage in the office. They can manage all your technology. Then you've got people who think that they have done everything as a salesperson and they're going to be the perfect FMO, and they're terrible.
Yeah.
They are good at managing their own assets, their own finances, halfway, but they don't know how to manage lead costs. They don't know how to say no to that agent. They don't know, I always would tell agents when they would come up and say, Gaylan, this lead's not interested. I would go, you got one more time to say that before you're out the door. Because you need to tell me why you're not more interesting.
Right.
You got guaranteed issue products in your portfolio that I never had.
You need to tell me why you're not more interesting. I like that one.
I mean, I always say if you've got a dental, vision, and hearing plan, Helen Keller would have loved to have been that person. Because Helen Keller, couldn't see, couldn't talk, couldn't hear, couldn't speak. All of those things. But she still made a life.
Yeah.
Because she had what? A teacher that never gave up on her.
Yep.
Never gave up on her. So, when people tell me they don't want to buy, I'm always like, they don't want to buy from you.
Yep.
But they want to buy.
I love that. They don't want to buy from you. I'm going to be quoting Gaylan Hendricks for like the next 6 months.
Oh, Lord.
People want to buy, but they don't want to buy from you.
Yeah.
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 Stick it to them.
Yeah.
So So what's your shop look like now? You have a career shop. How many people are in the career side?
We had a career organization. It got really, really hard. We've always run our business lean and mean.
Yeah.
Everybody on Integrity will tell you they don't know how we write, what we write,
Yeah.
with the number of employees we do, but it's worked for us. I always say it's a champagne-looking gig on a beer pocketbook.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
But it got to be a lot when there was more in demand for a Queen of the Bundle and out in the field.
So that's when that really started
Yep.
transitioning around the
Yep.
2020 mark.
Because I
Yeah.
had those people right out in front of my office.
Yeah.
And I just decided, along with my team, it was time to graduate the brokers, the internal agents, to go be brokers.
Yeah.
What you've got to be careful is with that word broker. The root word of that word is broke.
Yeah.
So when they go out on their own, if they don't have a plan in place, they will end up with a great title, but not a great opportunity.
Right.
So we tried to help those folks. We have some that are super successful that left, some that are still finding their way, some that think switching FMO is the only way to go, which is horrible. You know, FMOs don't make or break you.
Yeah.
You make or break yourself.
Absolutely.
FMOs, for the most part, are going to give you the same street level comp. It's the support of the back office. It's the support of the selling machine. And we give all of that. But then when those agents start figuring out how much it costs to run the deal that we were giving them, whew,
That's exactly what I was saying earlier. It's
it's a wake-up moment.
Yeah. I mean, lead generation,
Ooh,
administrative staff, all those things that you thought, hey, I could do this on my own. Well, now you really are doing it all on your own.
You are. And, you know, I look at organizations like yours and I look at other organizations. We've got some people that we graduated that are killing it right now.
Yeah.
But they knew what their lane was. You know, we had this agent that was working for us. We call her Tamara D. She stuck to her lane. She is in sales. She has no desire to build a team. She has qualified for every trip since she left us. And then we had others that were telling us, I can run this, I can run that, I've done this, I've done that. And they are still trying to figure out where they line up.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're not good salespeople. They prove that working for us. They're not good managers of their time and their resources.
Yeah.
And time is money. Long time ago, Shep Cutler used to tell me, this little lead card is $500. It's up to you how you spend it.
Yep.
So I didn't think there was an attorney or a CPA that was worth more than me. When they charge $500 an hour, I'm like, hey, I'm worth $500 an hour. So if I spend $500 with you, which means an hour, that means I better get $500 back.
Yeah. Value. Yep.
And if I'm not, then I'm going to figure out what happened. And people ask, well, then why do you do those podcasts? Folks, the proprietary plans that I have designed for agents, by agents, are making that $500 for me while I'm sitting here talking to you.
Right.
Because you're going to say, Gaylan, that Aetna plan, what'd you say? That's my baby.
That's my baby. That's my firstborn. Yep.
And that was my firstborn.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, that plan is still one of the best, if not the best,
Yeah.
cancer plan in the marketplace.
Yeah. I agree with you.
And it's because we did things different with that plan, things that agents needed.
Yep.
Same thing with the Manhattan Life portfolio. All the products that I've had the pleasure of being part of the product and development design on, you know, that's making the $500 sitting here with you.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look at what you've written for Aetna, I think I owe you at least an hour to 2 or 3 or 4
I would
or
agree.
20
Yeah, I would
of my
agree. Yeah.
time. So, you know, not to mention, it's just part of paying it forward.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm a giving person.
Yeah.
My parents were generous
I'm also a
people.
persistent person.
You are. And persistency creates consistency.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
And
yeah.
vice versa. And so, you know, there was no way when Christian said, hey, Chase wants to visit with you. I'd already heard your name
Yeah.
at 8% nations ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, just have him call me. And he's like, well, will you be part of his deal? And I was like, yeah. Well, NABIP hadn't put their deal on my calendar. So they were like, well, you got to be there on Monday. That's when everything's starting. No, I already promised Chase.
We stole you for a day.
I'm going to be at his deal. So if y'all want me, you get me Monday night.
Yep.
And then Chase was so gracious to say, I'll put you on first or get you out of here by your flight, whatever it works. And I do that a lot these days. But I want to be part of you up and coming whippersnappers.
Yeah.
Because I'm learning more from you than you'll ever learn from me. And, you know, when people use the words like y'all did downstairs, you know, legend and, you know, somebody that's been around forever. I mean, I do like that better than dinosaur, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But, you know, the guys that were using the term dinosaur, I don't hear their names anymore. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
You know, I came up with this thing. You want to hear a dinosaur, you'll hear me roar.
I
And
can believe that.
I roared silently. You know, when people say ugly things, the best advice I can give to you is turn the other cheek. They're just weak. And move on.
Yeah.
Move on. And here you and I are talking, and the guy that uttered those words at 2 or 3 8% nations ago, they're nowhere to be found.
Right.
Their names are nowhere on social media right now. And where are you and I?
Yeah. We've got some attention.
We
Put it that way.
got the king of cross-selling. We got the queen of the bundle. We're going to bring a lot of heat tomorrow. And by heat, we mean getting you excited, getting your motors running. You know, that word heat means different things for different people.
Yeah.
But for me, it's we got to keep our motor running. We got to stay out ahead of this.
Well, and I think it's our job with being as convicted and belief in what we do is just to deliver that and showcase that and help other people understand why it's so important.
You know why package of protection became so interesting to people? During 2020, I started sending this little script around that you wanted to talk to your clients about a POP review.
Yeah.
And the agents go, okay, what does POP review mean? And I'm like, okay, y'all, think about it, package of protection.
Yep.
But the cool thing was they were asking the very same thing that the client was going to ask. What is a POP review? Those are music to your ears words. That's when you say, I want to make sure you have the package of protection you need. You may have a base health insurance plan, but you don't have the full package of protection that encapsulates that protects that base plan. And so the more we build your package of protection, we want to know who your sons and daughters are. We want to know who helps you make your decisions. We want to make sure we leave them thank you letters. The reason we're getting you to sign a declination form is when your son and daughter calls us, like they used to do my dad, and ask, how much life insurance did my mom have, Chase? And you say, well, I asked several times, and I finally had to get her to sign a declination form. You'll sell a third of those people if you'll call them back the next day and say, I want you to sign this form.
Basically saying they're refusing it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of people are starting to do that now. Yeah.
Been doing it my entire career.
Really? Holy smokes. Yeah, it's obviously working. Mm-hmm. Well, the totality of everything, I mean.
It is.
Queen of the bundle blew everything up, and you really honed in, focused on distribution. You were acquired in 2021 by Integrity. And just kind of wrapping this thing up, what are you most proud of this whole thing?
Well, so Queen of the Bundle really didn't ramp it up. We were just so under the radar. That's where we were talking about that.
Yeah.
But because we have always had a strong distribution, we have always been top in ancillary sales. We've always been in the top 5, if not the top 3 of our med sup production. And we've always killed it in the underage 65 alternative space.
Yep.
So people just didn't know who we are, but then you get me talking about Queen of the Bundle, and then all these people wanting to interview me. People think that that is what really took us to the next level. What really happened is we were already doing our acquisition, and then we had this little thing, Queen of the Bundle, over here just heating up, getting ready to bubble up. And by the time that we did the acquisition, we really, Integrity was getting 2 business units for the price of 1, as I love to say. If I'd have known now what I known then, I might have done a little different deal.
Yeah.
But it was just fast and furious, and I always give, you know, my partners credit where credit is due. Once we became partners, they started seeing what Queen of the Bundle was doing, and the more partner meetings we were having, the more rollouts we were having, the more AEP kickoff meetings we were having. Queen of the Bundle was part of all of that. Yeah. And we just kept growing and growing and growing. And now there's 1.5 employees. I'm 1. Yeah. Then we got a little bit of a third or a half here. But we are growing. And what a wonderful thing. I mean, just simply because agents have started realizing I do need to take better care of my clients. Yeah, and I need to do what's right.
I do feel like it's definitely there's been a lot more awareness to it.
Yes.
I feel like.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of us are singing the same song.
Yes.
And it's finally starting to become a #1 hit. You know what I'm saying?
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. and we're just such big believers in it. And I'm seeing it happen with CoachG. I mean,
yep.
Our awareness has blown up, our membership has blown up, our downline's blown up. And it's like when you can teach some people to do something unique, and not, let's be honest, it really affects not only the consumer's coverage, but the agent's pocketbook. And that's a win-win right there.
Replication equals renewals.
Yeah.
And so when an agent says, well, what's in it for me? Okay, all you have to do is go to the Warren Buffett School of Business for a day. And his best quote to me when I first heard was, you do not want to be in a replacement business. You want to be in a replication business. Yeah. And so I started really taking that to heart. And then I'd already known about the Steve Jobs, how they upsell and cross-sell. You don't just go in and buy an iPhone. You are upgrading that iPhone. You are buying a screen protector, you're buying a case for that phone, you're buying AirPods for that phone. Now we're buying hearing aids for the phone. And you know, so when I combined the best of those two, I became Queen of the Bundle. And they truly are people I learned from. And on paper, I am not supposed to be where I'm at. Just the way I didn't do a lot of things the way a lot of other people did to become 7-figure earners.
Yeah.
But I watched a lot of Sam Walton. I watched a lot of Zig Ziglar. I watched a lot of Warren Buffett, and I've watched a lot of Steve Jobs. And I can't think of any 4 people that were so different but so alike in their business building. Yeah. And I wanted to dress like a Sam Walton, be comfortable in myself, and I wanted to be innovative like Steve Jobs, and I wanted to be really down to earth like Warren Buffett. But when I heard Zig Ziglar speak, I envisioned being the female version of Zig Ziglar. And I got to meet Tom Ziglar, his son, and I mentioned that to him, and he said, you're already there. You have the same faith as my dad. You have the same work ethic as my dad. And people relate to you just like they related to him. And those were compliments that I get to take on this road of life with me. Yeah. And you know, when I make a decision on something, I always ask myself, what would those 4 do? And you know, obviously I'm a big faith person. That will always be part of my life. So WWJD's up here. And then there's probably WWDD, which is what would Dan do, or what will Dan want me to do, which is my husband. But those 4 have always been a driving force in my business model, at least these last 10 years, if not the last 20.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to believe that 22 years ago, May, is when I went out on my own, because a lot of the people that I compete with, their fathers, their relatives had a business model, they stepped into those business models, or they had been independent.
Yeah.
You know, I'd always worked for somebody.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons why I fought doing the integrity thing for a while, because I didn't want to give up my independence.
Right.
Well, lo and behold, they took hold of that. Probably shouldn't have negotiated that part, because they're letting me be as independent as I want to be.
Yeah.
Sometimes to my own detriment. I miss independence. But, you know, I love what I'm doing. I've never been happier than I am right now in my personal life, in my business life. I could be home a little more to give a little bit more juice to my personal happiness. But, I mean, this is the life I always dreamed of.
Yeah.
You know, and being a motivational speaker, when people call me that, that's the ultimate compliment. And I just love it.
Yeah, it shows. I
Thank
mean,
you.
the integrity, the authenticity, the passion. I can't wait. I've never seen you speak in person tomorrow, so I'm excited for that, and I cannot say enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
For coming today. I know just making this interview work, you got dinner here coming up. We got a lot of moving parts here in the next 24 hours. So thank you again. If
Appreciate
people
it.
want to find you, where do they find you at?
You can, well, where am I not? It seems like these days. But you can go out to Queen of the Bundle on Facebook. I'm out there. We've got a new website up and running that I'm excited about, which is in all the Facebook groups. But I just say easy peasy Facebook. You know, I just love what's going on in our industry right now. There's so much opportunity, and y'all just got to remember that even though a lot of y'all think, oh my gosh, every day there's something new, that's what keeps us viable. You know, we are the educators, so we are going to be viable.
And it's our job as the professionals to keep developing, right? And keep being on top of trends and keep improving.
Absolutely. That's well said. I'll copy that.
Well, thank you so much, Gaylan. Make sure to like, subscribe, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and thank you again. It's been an episode of Just Like That, Only Different. We'll catch you on the next one.